YouTube, what's good? Pilson90 here, back in with another video. And in this video today, we're going to be talking about free agency. It's only a couple weeks away, and we're going to talk about what the Dolphins should do. Who should we keep and re-sign? Who should we possibly use the franchise tag on? And who should we get rid of? First off, want to give a big shout out to my buddy Steel Maiden. Because he did a similar video to this on his channel where he talked about what the Steelers should do in free agency. Steel Maiden, Steelers, fits right together. Also a member of the Four Horsemen of Pick'ems, which is coming in September or August, one of the two. So I'm going to do the same, but with my team, which is the Miami Dolphins. Now, right off the bat, I have a feeling that quite a few of Brian Flores' guys won't be back, as this is a transition period for us. Brian Flores' guys won't necessarily be Mike McDaniel's guys per se. So with that being said, as of today, the 1st of March 2022, we have 18 free agents, and we are going to break it down. But first, all right, that looks better. Let's just do one more thing real quick. Boom. If you know what video game that's from, you're freaking badass. So, let's start out with the players who I believe will not be back for the 2022 season. Some of which I believe we will make an offer to, and some of which I think we'll let walk and test out the open market. First off the bat is Will Fuller. And a lot of Dolphins fans are in agreement on this one. He is, without question, one of, if not, the most disappointing free agent wide receiver signings we've ever had. He's up there with David Boston. He's up there with Mike Wallace. But the difference between those two and Will Fuller is that they caught touchdowns. We signed Will Fuller for 1 year, $10 million, and his stats were as follows. He was suspended week 1 for something that happened in 2020. He played 2 games, was targeted 8 times, caught 4 passes for 26 yards, and 1 2-point conversion. I know because I was there for that 2-point conversion against the Raiders in Las Vegas. So, if you really think about it, he got $2.5 million per catch he had this year. 4 catches, made $2.5 million per catch. Now, granted, he was injured for most of the year because of hand and finger issues, and I do wish him well in his recovery, but as far as next season goes, we can do better. Hell, at that price, we can probably get 2 or 3 receivers for that. Regardless, Will Fuller is one and done here in South Florida. All right, next up is Jacobi Brissett. And again, Dolphins fans would agree that his time is up. As a South Florida native, I think it's awesome that he got to play for his hometown team. He's from Palm Beach County. He went to Dwyer High School, which is right down the road from where I went to high school. But we can easily do better at backup quarterback. His stats were as follows. He played in 11 games, got 5 starts because Tua was out with broken ribs. He threw for 1,283 yards, 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, had 1 rushing touchdown, and 6 fumbles. That's right. He had more fumbles than passing touchdowns. Yikes. He's probably going to go to the Giants next year, let's be honest. They need a backup. They need a starter. I'm calling it right now, but as far as next year goes, we're going to look better at quarterback, especially at backup. Next up is Landon Roberts. Now, he's one of those New England linebackers that we got in 2010. We got him, we got Van Noy, we got Shaq Lawson, we got Ogbah. Well, not all of those guys from New England, but that was our haul in 2020. And he's honestly, Landon Roberts has honestly been a serviceable linebacker for us. He played in 15 games this past year, had 83 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. And like I said earlier, I have a feeling that he'll get a better offer elsewhere, and for that reason, I don't see him coming back. Next up is Malcolm Brown. We got him from the Rams in this past offseason. He started 3 games, he played in 7, had 125 yards, and scored 1 touchdown. Honestly, I think it would be best if we moved on. There's better options at running back either in free agency or in the draft, or we can re-sign one of the two guys I'll mention later on. Next up is Michael Palardy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pizzle, why were you bringing up the punter? Because special teams are extremely important in today's game of football. And his numbers were fine. He had 78 punts, with 31 of them being inside the 20 and 5 touchbacks. I just feel like we can get better there, either in free agency or in the draft. I feel like we can do better at punter. Next up is a guy I totally forgot played with us this past year, and that's Jason McCoy. It was honestly one of those blink and you miss it players for us. He played in 7 games, started in 4, had 21 tackles, 11 of which were solo, 10 were assisted. He's 34, and his best days are behind him. We need to get younger in the secondary, and with that being said, I don't see him coming back for us next year. Next up, another guy I totally forgot to play with us. I honestly thought he was still on the Bears, but apparently he came back, and that's John Jenkins. He played in 7 games, had 2 starts, 16 tackles, 10 of which were solo, and 9 were assisted. Same thing with McCoy. We need to get better or younger on the line, and for that reason, I don't see him coming back. And last up, we have Greg Mance, who was a backup center. He played in 5 games, started 4 of them, and I'm not going to lie, he looked decent on our He looked decent, but our offensive line for years has been absolute terrible. We need to update our offensive line at all costs. Does not matter what position it is, we have to upgrade it. For that reason, I do not see Greg Mance coming back next year. Now, let's get to the players who I believe will be back and we will re-sign for the 2022 season. First up, no surprise whatsoever, Emmanuel Ogbah. This guy has been a force on our defensive line. And honestly, over the past 2 years, he's been one of our bright spots for our defense. In the 2 years he's been with us, he's had 18 sacks, 9 each year, 4 forced fumbles, 3 in 2020, 1 this past year in 2021, 83 tackles, 42 in 2020, 41 in 2021, and of those, 25 were solo in 2020, 26 in 2021, 17 were assisted tackles in 2020, and 15 were in 2021. And we have to keep him at all costs. Whatever it takes, Emmanuel Ogbah has to be a Miami Dolphin for the foreseeable future. He has been an absolute stud. He needs to be back. No question about it. Next up is Phillip Lindsay. We got him off the waiver wire when the Texans released him. He played in 3 games for us and only had 79 yards on 21 attempts. However, I saw this tweet on Twitter, go figure, and he has to be back this year after I read this. He is the only player since 1950 with 700 touches and 0 fumbles. And I believe that he will be perfect in Mike McDaniel's system along with another running back that I'll mention in a little bit. Actually, let's do that one right now. Duke Johnson. He was signed to our practice squad in the middle of the season and made his debut in the middle of December. And in his first game with the Dolphins against the Jets, he ran for a career high of 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. His season stats, he played in 4 games, had 213 yards total, and 2 touchdowns. He's a local kid who always wanted to play for his hometown team. He did, not to mention he's from the U. And there's no doubt in my mind that he will be back next year. I think him and Phillip Lindsay will be an awesome 1-2 punch in the backfield. The next one might be a little bit of a surprise for you guys out there. Next up is Albert Wilson. He played 14 games in 2021, caught 25 passes for 213 yards. And I know what you guys are thinking. Why would we keep him? He hasn't played a full season. He's always been hurt. Hear me out. If we can get him on a cheap deal, he's worth every penny, especially with the way Mike McDaniel utilizes wide receivers in his offense. I mean, come on. Speaking of receivers, next up, Mac Hollins. This, to me, is a no-brainer. He has been with us for 3 seasons now. This past year in 2020, he played in all 17 games, caught 14 passes for 223 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's also been an ace on special teams. He's one of our captains. And if you've seen him do the gritty, whew, oh baby, he is an absolute stud and has to be back for next year. Okay, next one is a bit of an interesting one. Next up, Big M, Mike Gesicki. He is due for a new deal. In his 4 years here, he has caught 199 passes for 2,553 yards and has caught 13 touchdowns. Now this is where I believe we use the franchise tag. And if we use it, it'll be $9.6 million against the cap, which isn't too bad, especially since we have the highest cap room in the NFL, which is, I believe, at... Hold on just a minute. I believe we have $61 million as of right now. And Greer can work out a new deal with him in the future season in 2022. Speaking of tight end, up next is Durham Smythe. And he, like Gesicki, is due for a new deal. In his 4 years here, he has caught 73 passes for 680 yards and 2 touchdowns. The difference between the two of them, Durham Smythe and Mike Gesicki, is that most consider Mike Gesicki more of a receiving tight end, while others consider Durham Smythe as a blocking tight end. Both are important, and for that, I see both Durham Smythe and Mike Gesicki being back for 2022. All right, let's get back to some defensive players for a little bit. Next, let's go to Justin Coleman, who played 17 games for us, started 4, 27 total tackles, 20 of which were solo, and 7 were assisted, and he also had 2 interceptions. We need depth in the secondary. He's experienced enough, and I think he's a nice plug-and-play cornerback. If we can get him on a cheap deal for a couple of years, he would be ideal for the secondary. Next up is Duke Riley. And in 2021, he played 16 games, started 3 of them, had 27 tackles, 15 were solo, and 11 were assisted. He, like Mac Hollins, has been huge in special teams. One of the best plays from last year against the Panthers, where he blocked the punt for a touchdown. And our linebacker core, not going to lie, is pretty weak. So we need depth. So, for that reason, I believe Duke Riley will stay as a member of the Dolphins in 2022. And lastly, we have Brandon Scarlett. In 2021, he played 13 games, started 4, 19 tackles, 7 of which were solo, 13 were assisted. Like I said already with Duke Riley, our linebacking core is pretty weak as it is, so depth is something we should target this offseason, and so for that, I believe that Brennan Scarlett will stay a Dolphin for 2022. And that is it for this video today. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think the Dolphins should do in free agency. Who should we keep? Who should we let go? Please, as always, like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. The links are posted down in the description box down below. And as always, this is your boy, A Pizzle 90, saying peace out and fins up. Baby!